That's the doorbell at Jimmy's house. Now, when you come to my house, my doorbell sounds like this.
Hey, welcome to the People's Radio United weekly show, or the People's Weekly as we're now calling it. I'm Tim Best Buzz. I'm here with Steve Shagwell and Canadian Glenn. How are you guys doing?
Good afternoon.
I'm doing great.
So yeah, let's quickly, I guess, go over everything we need to go over, all the whatever we're doing new. Does anyone want to start? I guess.
Me?
Go ahead.
Well, I actually took a week off from my regular show this week. Every once in a while you need a break. But, you know, you get to that point where you're trying to plan out 4 or 6 episodes, but nothing's closed. Everything's, developing. So lots to come, but nothing for right now. And what the view up here is going to be working back to for this part of the summer before I take my actual vacation, when I'll miss probably 3 weeks of shows. But I'm going to be getting back on the Indigenous perspective in Canada. There was an awful lot of hoopla made about how the new government was going to have a new relationship with First Nations. Well, that's all just talk. Surprise, surprise. So that'll be where my show's heading in the next while.
Cool.
I dig it.
What's going on with you, Steve? I Fought the Law, or whatever else you're working on.
Well, with ifoughttelaw.info, I've been working on this idea where I had that interview with Alex Salazar, former LAPD, and had this idea of making the next several episodes series within the series where I interview former LEOs. I'm having a hard time working out scheduling and everything to where I don't think I can have that several in a row with former LEOs. So I think those are just going to happen when they happen now. And I'm working on my next episode, just kind of figuring out what it's going to be. And by next week, I'll have that figured out and I'll have a guest lined up. I'm looking very forward to doing another episode because, of course, it's been a while. I've been very busy with Your Band Sucks, my site where I roast bands, and, some other things. Plus, I'm kind of on a vacation right now. So that's about all that's going on with me. So.
Cool. And the My Non-Objective Opinion show, it was supposed to be last week, got pushed back. One of the guests had an emergency, so there's more of those coming up soon. And everyone needs to remember, you can always, if you have something you need to get out, a message or an action happening, you can always use the People's Voice and give us the recording, and we'll go ahead and put it up for you and promote it. So never forget about that. The People's Voice is here for you, or you could always just contact me and say you need something to go out, and we'll get it out. That's what People's Radio is. It's the People's Radio. So I guess you guys ready to get started with the actual show?
Well, actually, you pointed out something that I want to shout out for ifoughttelaw.info too. That, the idea of being a people's platform, right now, ifoughttelaw.info, it's basically the Steve Shagwell show. And I don't want that site to be the Steve Shagwell show. Anybody out there who's concerned about criminal justice, abuse, abuse of people by the criminal justice system, in whatever form, whether it's police brutality, whether it's civil forfeiture, whether it's corrupt judges, whatever, get at me. I would be happy to put up, articles, op-eds, whatever, on ifoughttelaw.info. That's not just there for me, and it's not just my thing. In fact, if more people contribute, I can relax a little bit. So anybody's welcome. Just had to put that out there.
Cool. So yeah, I guess our first topic we were going to talk about was, are we going? Is the U.S. I forgot Canadian Glenn's luckily not a part of we. Will the U.S. be going to war with North Korea?
I think no.
I think
I
I
think
agree
that's not
fully
going to
with
happen.
you.
Okay, you know about me and my tinfoil hat. So here's my tinfoil hat theory. I think Trump is posturing really tough with North Korea, and taking this tough stance with North Korea because he knows that he doesn't have to worry about North Korea launching a nuclear strike against the U.S. It kind of goes with his MO that I talked about, where he's a bully, but he only bullies from safe places.
Yep.
He has. I think it's a pretty much a foregone conclusion that Russian hackers are backing him. Whether it's his idea or their idea, they're backing him. And I think all those missile tests failing in North Korea are not an accident. I think that's probably the work of those Russian hackers, and he knows he doesn't have to worry about a nuclear strike, so he's pushing hard because this is a thing that he can win. That's my tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah, that's a big tinfoil hat.
I know it is, man. But
they just always. I mean, North Korea's notorious for failed missile launches as a big giant threat to show the world how powerful they are. I think we just both have madmen running our countries that are very similar and very into themselves and think they're like the supreme rulers of all, and they don't click good. But you got to remember,
yeah,
Trump thought that Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un were the same person, because in one of his speeches he gave, he said something like, Bush has dealt with this guy and Obama's dealt with this guy, and we're going to deal with him too, or something to that effect. So
that doesn't surprise me at all.
He didn't even know that one's a father and one's a son. He knows nothing about politics, foreign policy, or anything. He's just a big idiot that loves himself, and their country has a similar leader, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say so. What's your take, Glenn?
Well, again, I think pretty much everything Trump has to say, it doesn't matter what the subject of it is supposed to be, it's all for domestic consumption. All he's worried about is how he's perceived at home. He doesn't really seem to give a shit about who he winds up outside of American borders. If you want to be an authoritarian, I mean, that's where he's a direct comparison to Kim Jong-un. All he has to worry about is North Korea. That's it. Nobody else has to like him one bit. Now, I think for the President of the United States to start to adopt this attitude is not going to work out well. I think what I've been reading, sources like Night Watch, other sources that keep an eye on all of Asia. A lot of people laugh about all the failures that North Korea had, but sooner or later, you learn from those failures. And if it was software or malware related, there is the chance that they knew what was going on, and they knew they had a leak on their single stage rocket, and they just left it there and let whoever was infiltrating them carry on, because they were working on their two-stage rocket, and that's what we saw this last week. And there are conflicting reports, but some reports say this is an ICBM now. It has the range and the velocity to be an intercontinental ballistic missile. So, that's the other side of it. Considering where North Korea was a year ago to where they are now, that's a pretty large leap. So, I mean, and they obviously have confidence in what they're doing, because this two-stage rocket basically went straight up and then fell back down. So Japan's not that far away. So, I mean, if they had the confidence to demonstrate this in this manner, they had to be pretty sure that it was going to work the way they thought it would.
Oh, I'm sure they can hit Japan with something. I thought you were referring to coming to the U.S. and striking us. I think that's a ways off for them still. But I could be wrong, you know.
No. I mean, them firing it.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Them firing it straight up, it basically into space and turning it around was just, you know, a way to prove its range without going more horizontal, if you will. But I mean, they've never done that before. The missile would be, you know, entering into a minimal gravity area of the atmosphere. So, I mean, they had to have pretty good confidence in their guidance systems. Because if that thing just fell down and screwed up and then hit Japan out of this test, then, you know, the world would be very different today than it is.
That is definitely a level of achievement for them. That's a quantum leap in achievement for them if they achieve that. If North Korea achieved that, then they've been doing their homework and come a long way in a year.
Now, as far as Trump with, you know, what he's got to say, I mean, standing at a podium and going, well, you know, I don't tell people what my plans are. Well, you don't have any plans. That's pretty obvious already. We've seen that. You know, yep. We've seen this from beginning to end. We've seen this on the Syrian strike. We've seen this on the jobs front. You know, the halls of most of the departments are, you shoot a fucking cannon down them. Nobody wants to work for this government. They're skeleton staff with poor leadership. This is not a good situation. So, you know, like you mentioned before, Tim, China wants that buffer there. They do not want a unified Korea. And China would be happy if all the American soldiers left South Korea just like Kim Jong-un wants. That's never going to happen, but, you know, I mean, there's a definite purpose in the geopolitical game that North Korea plays for the big boys, as usual. Nothing's changed from the Cold War. So, you know, I think the bottom line is the U.S. is not going to be the influence that comes up with a solution for this problem. They're just going to make noise and pretend they're running the show.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean, just to be clear, I wasn't saying Japanese people and their lives aren't important. I was saying according to Trump, he doesn't care unless it affects him, basically, and on a broader scale, maybe the U.S., because that would affect him, you know, but it's all about him, really. It has nothing to do with Japan or any other place, in his mind. To the people, that's a whole nother story. We want everybody safe, and we don't want any kind of war, especially a nuclear war.
No, I mean, this is the risk in a world with this level of hair trigger from so many different places on the globe now, to have someone in the position of the President of the United States who runs the largest kick-ass tool man has ever known, for him to basically say, yeah, whatever, it's not in my backyard, who cares? That's not helping at all.
Oh, I know. Very little
that's a very bad.
But then to play devil's advocate, is that better than somebody trying to start shit everywhere with that kick-ass machine? Or that may come yet.
Yeah, I don't know. They both. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, you know what, we're in a time right now where nobody can really predict what's going to happen anymore. You know, I mean, the presidency has been so erratic they're just, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen next, you know? And I don't know if you saw this, but like people are putting together these videos that show Donald Trump displaying very clear signs of dementia too. Yep. Like he getting off the plane and his limo's at the bottom of the stairs and he just veers right and walks off towards nothing until they grab him and turn him around. And then he's like, oh, and walks back to his limo and stuff like that. So, you know, everything's just a wild card right now, which I kind of like, but man, it's scary at the same time, you know?
He's done that twice.
I mean, I do enjoy. Oh yeah, he has. So, you know, as somebody who hates the government, there's an aspect to this whole fact that it's a house of cards right now, and there's a bull running through it, and it's probably going to topple. I kind of enjoy that aspect of things, but you know, I still hate this man, and it's, you know, things are. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here. It's just nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody can predict what's going to happen anymore. There's no way to tell. You know, all we can do is just like hold on and hope it turns out good, I guess.
Glenn, do a lot of Canadians just laugh at us over here, or is it past that and they just like are in tears now, like this is too close to us?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that Trump is trying to get done through the White House, to the way institutions work in the U.S. and what's funded by public money and what's not. I mean, bringing somebody like DeVos onto the cabinet for education, like, holy Christ. But for 10 years, we put up with Stephen Harper. And a lot of the things that is in the news cycle in the U.S., that's a lead story about Trump attacks this, Trump attacks that. All of us in Canada are like, oh yeah, been there, seen that. You know, because Harper did all these things before Trump did. So, you know, we're just kind of, it's popcorn time. We've been through this, but, you know, the smart Canadians understand that the U.S. is a scale times 10 compared to us. So we're just kind of watching and, you know, yeah, whatever. You guys, yeah, freedom, all that stuff. Just stay down there, okay? Yeah. And I will say that Canadian tourism is having about the best year in the last 50.
Yeah, I bet Canada's looking pretty sexy to a lot of people right now.
I mean, there was the crash of the Canadian Immigration and Citizenship Ministry's website because in November, after the election, the site was crashed because too many people were trying to find out what it took to immigrate to Canada from the U.S.
Yeah, I remember that was on the news here. They crashed the website. That was insane. Wasn't that like when either Inauguration Day or when Trump was first elected or whatever happened? Yeah, I mean that was crazy.
But I see that nobody got charged for the DDoS though.
Yeah.
Because basically that's what it was. You know?
Yeah.
How come nobody's going to jail?
Because they can't arrest all those people.
Oh, that's okay. It didn't matter with PayPal 14. Just pick some. It's their fault.
That's true. Yeah, these internet laws are getting crazier and crazier by the day, too. That was actually where we were headed anyway. Talking about why
the free and open internet.
Why is that so important? Or why that is so important. I wasn't asking a question. I was making a statement.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, there's the obvious reason that a free and open internet is so important. It's you know, where people like us actually get to have a platform and make our voices heard. If you take away the internet, we're back to Fox News and CNN and MSNBC controlling the narrative in America, and whoever runs the media in Canada and Europe controlling the media there, controlling the dialogue there. So, I mean, a free and open internet is like everything. It's literally everything since it came along. It's one of the most important things to maintaining a free society, or whatever resemblance to it we might have.
Yeah, it's given Oh, go ahead, Glenn.
No, I was just going to say that, I'm no spring chicken, and I've lived through a lot of technological leaps and bounds. Like, I remember when I was a little small, it was the world of black and white TV. So we've come a ways, but what I'm seeing is the internet as it exists now. This is the most obvious and important issue where you can demonstrate what equal rights really means. And with the free and open internet, it's there, it's global, it's everywhere. And, there are people that have to come online and talk about what's happening in their neighborhood, in their own country, because they can't go out and talk to the other people who are actually there. We saw it with the dial-ups that were set up by Telecomics in Arab Spring and all kinds of things like that happening all the time. This is probably the best demonstration that man still is free in some form, where we have a free and open internet.
Yeah, and it connects us all in a free way where we could talk. Like, I could talk to you in Canada, or Top in the UK, or you know what I mean. We can all be connected and talk in real time, and everybody can be a journalist, or not even a journalist, but everyone can show what's happening from their perspective now. Pretty much, everyone has a camera. Everyone has what only a very few had 20, 30 years ago.
Well, yeah, and like one of the most important things about the internet for me is you see government narratives getting busted up by people who are there with cameras, live streaming. Like I remember during Ferguson and no DAPL, I was really excited because you'd have something go down, and the police would blatantly lie. Ferguson Police Department would blatantly lie. The Sheriff's Department at no DAPL would blatantly lie. And then you'd see live stream footage that showed that they were lying.
Yep.
And that's huge. That's so huge, because that's to me, that's probably the greatest gift the internet has given us. The government used to be able to just lie, go to the big media outlets, say this is the story, and the big media outlets would parrot it, and they still do that, but that's always getting disrupted by live streamers and by independent journalists, people who come up with proof against the official narrative, and they have a way to put it out there. And so, of course, it's no wonder that every presidential administration we've ever had has wanted to, hand it over to a big media company and basically make it the mainstream media.
Gain profit and control at the same time.
I think that's a good point. Operation Mockingbird never stopped.
Oh, no, it definitely didn't.
What I liken it to, again, relying on my advanced age in this group, I can remember when the news that was on TV during supper hour every night was Vietnam. Vietnam, Vietnam, these new 40-pound handheld cameras in the jungle and stuff like that, reporters getting out of helicopters. That was something that was brand new. That was new technology, and the media took advantage of it. And the state learned from that. They said, this is never going to happen again. The next war, this ain't going to happen. And we had to wait until the first Iraq war, and it was completely different. The press was kept in secure facilities. Certain people were embedded. So they took that over. They completely nullified it by changing all the rules. Not surpassing the technology, just by changing all the rules. And this is exactly what I see them trying to do with the internet. They can't surpass the technology. They just want to change all the rules. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, you nailed it there, Glenn.
It just, the way this has gone, it's just, for me, with my life experience, it just totally reminds me of, families everywhere around the world, especially in the United States and in Canada, watching that footage from Vietnam every night on the 6 o'clock news. Night after week after month. That had never happened before. People had no idea what real war was like. And, it did make a big difference in getting the U.S. out of Vietnam. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but even back with the first Iraq war, when they were there, that was all you got to see. Whatever CNN and Fox News and I think maybe it was CNN back then, but whatever the mainstream media would show you with their embedded reporters and camera crews that were actually there. Now we have soldiers and citizens and people all over there who have cameras on them, so we're seeing different sides of the story, like Steve said, and you kind of said too, which is like a whole nother world than back then. What you said, you had a black and white television?
Yeah.
Was that 4K?
I think it was 0.4K.
0.4K. Yeah, but now you get all these different sides to the story instead of just the official side that most likely isn't the truth.
Well, Harry Fear, there's a perfect example of that. I mean, he broadcasted from Gaza live through that entire war. Yeah. There were no journalists allowed in Gaza, but he was there, and he sent it out. And then other people did too, all it takes is one to get it going. And, that's kind of what I see. Every time the government does something, they think they can stomp something out. The workarounds that are developed technologically and socially, the government has no chance of equaling the internet community. There's just no way. We're too fucking smart for them.
Yeah, I like what you said about... Go ahead, Tim.
Real quick, I was just going to say, you literally have the mind power of every person in the world. You know what I mean with that? It's not... A government team can't deal with that. You have every person in the world looking at it from their perspective, coming together on it. And that's how problems get solved in the favor of the people, generally, hopefully. But go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
I was just going to say that what you said, Glenn, about Palestine, that was and I can't remember the person's name who was broadcasting from that whole thing, but that's just such a incredible illustration of how citizens can grab control, or people can grab control of the narrative from the government, because I remember listening to the people around me talk about Israel and Palestine before that. And there was a lot of like, oh, those Palestinians, they're terrorists, and those, poor Israel and this sort of thing. And after that happened, people around me were talking different. They were like, oh, okay, so these Palestinians are getting kicked out of their homes, and this is being done to them, and I wouldn't like that either, and I'd probably lash out too. It was like people were talking about the whole thing differently after that happened. And like you said, that was one guy, but the internet made it possible.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tim, that, yeah, rightly so. Governments everywhere are scared shitless of this power. But, again, I mean, if you don't want to get punched in the mouth, then watch what you say. I mean, this is just, I don't know if it's the hubris of power or what, but governments keep pushing and the reactions get stronger. That's just physics. That's how it works. It's just, they never let up with the authoritarian side of it. It's like, no, we're going to tell you what is acceptable. And the people of the world say, no, you're not.
Net neutrality just kills me, though. I mean, you want the people to pay your higher fees so you can control every website they go to and throttle the speeds, shut some down, decide who can and can't have their voices heard, and you want us to pay for it through your service. What kind of crap is that, man? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't like that either. I mean, I don't get it either. Like, I don't understand how anybody in Congress or whatever can go to work, look at this and say, that's a good, well, they're probably being blackmailed or excessively bribed. But I mean, it's like, it's such a no-brainer what a threat to the idea of democracy and the idea of freedom that is. This idea of being able to, like, charge people to have their stuff in the fast lane of the internet. And if the internet then becomes a pay-to-play system, just like everything else in America.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important we protect our free and open internet, because it's the one place where you don't have to pay to play. And, that allows what the three of us are doing with our stuff to get out there. We've been talking about this from the perspective of fighting the government, fighting censorship, fighting oppression. There's another aspect to this too, and I mean, the internet has given us some pretty stupid shit. Let's face it. A lot of idiocy goes around on the internet. But like me, I love philosophy, and I've always wanted to learn more about philosophy. And, I found a philosophy podcast called Philosophize This on iTunes, and it goes through all the philosophers, and I've been really learning a lot. There's a iTunes University has a Harvard ethics course. You can go through the whole ethics course, and it's got the syllabus and everything. I mean, and then the TED Talks, as far as just people being able to learn and better themselves, I realize most people don't use the internet for that, but that option is there, and that's an option we didn't used to have. To just go and get knowledge. And I mean, maybe eventually when people get over their wow factor about the internet and look at all the retarded shit I can do, they'll get bored of it and go, well, now how can I use this to better my mind? How can I use this to expand my ideas? Maybe that's an overly optimistic view of things and unrealistic, but I'd like to think that could happen. At the very least, the possibility is there for that. And that, too, is just so important. I would be way less educated if it weren't for the internet.
Yeah.
The capability of it, yes. We've never seen anything like it, and it keeps expanding. I mean, my mother has never owned a computer. She can function enough that she figured out she had to set up an email to be able to buy things on the internet. That's about as far as her operational knowledge goes. But still, she understands. She doesn't have a clue how it works or anything like that, but just the concept of it. She knows I do my show. And she's like, so like you have these people on live and they're like in all these different places and in Europe. And I said, yeah. And she's just like blown away. It's like, holy shit, that's amazing. This has to be used. It can't be given up.
It's magic.
But the one thing I'm surprised we haven't seen in the U.S. yet is people who want to end net neutrality using the excuse that the internet is socialism.
What?
I've never heard that. Wow.
Do you think it's going to happen? Because this is a perfect right-wing argument of what socialism is and how bad it is.
Yeah, but the right wing needs the internet to thrive right now, especially. They're the meme people.
But maybe they have the confidence that they will get the subscribers that are their only real audience out there anyway.
I guess that's that.
The first thing that comes to mind about this idea from the right that the internet is socialism, socialism is an economic system, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's talking about money. We're talking about the internet.
But that's just it, though. They won't.
I'm astounded.
They will try to make it about money because that's what they do with everything else.
Yeah, can I go back? Oh, go ahead.
Well, that's what it's about to them, though. It's about money. It's about monetizing the internet.
That's true. But let me go back a second to when Steve was talking about Congress and Senate. Let's get one thing really, really clear for the people listening. They don't have to be threatened or bribed because we have lobbyists, which is a legal bribe. So there's the more money you have in this country, the more say you have. And they're not threatening any congressmen or senators to go against the people. They're just paying them off legally.
Right. And I guess by bribe, that's what I meant. You know, there's so many legal avenues by which you can just, you know, if you have money, you can bribe a politician. And I guess by the letter of the law, it's not a bribe, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. It's a bribe, you know.
You know what we should do? We should make a video where different people from around the country try to see their elected officials, you know, start with like a mayor, then move up to a governor, then go up, you know, to Congress, and see how many people are actually accessible to you, to regular people, not the press, not millionaires, not billionaires. And I bet you'd see they don't want to talk to any of us because we don't come bearing gifts and funds.
Oh, you know that's the case.
Really, that's no different in Canada either.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's, if Top was here, he would say it was the same in the UK, with maybe a few exceptions.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. And that right there is what makes the internet so important. You know, it's something of an equalizer. You know, they're finding ways to make it less and less of an equalizer, but it's still kind of an equalizer. And we need it. We really need it. So, and I've heard this argument that, well, if you have the FCC regulate the internet so that it's not a pay-to-play system, you're looking for the government to protect your internet, and then you're going to the government, so ultimately you're shooting yourself in the foot. Well, maybe there's something there, but the way I look at that whole thing is we have a government. Like it or not, we have a government. I would rather we didn't, but we do. And if it's going to be here, if I have to have that thing around, I would like it to do something useful, like protect the open internet.
Yeah, but they don't complain about the other things the government does. And they don't complain when the roads get fixed by the government with their tax dollars. They don't complain when, you know, all this stuff happens that you're paying for and it's your tax dollars and the government doing it. It's just certain things all of a sudden. That's socialism, that's communism, the government. We don't want the government. maybe if the government didn't spend so much money on war and police terror and really fix things up for the people and made sure we had what we were paying for with our taxes, things would be way better.
Yeah, you just have to wonder about the mindset of these people who are so okay with the government spending our tax money, which I think is extortion, spending it on all these police and, militarizing the police and expanding police power. They use the money for that, and build more prisons and this sort of thing. They're like totally okay with that. That's not socialism, the government doing that, but the government protecting our free and open internet, which could actually counter the government. Oh, that's a bad thing. That's socialism. It's like, I don't get that at all.
It's politics.
Yeah, it's like the Red Scare stuff coming back. Everything's a commie or a socialist to these people lately. I guess they went off their cuck phase, and yeah, everything's Marxist, communist, socialist, all these words they use for people, many of which are anarchists.
Well, we took the word snowflake and cuck away from them and started turning it against them and pointing out how these words actually apply to you, entitled brats, and so they're not used. Yeah, you're right. They've gone back to their old fall by cultural Marxism, and that's socialism, and there's a communist threat, and this kind of stuff. And you're right, Tim.
Politics.
No one's screaming, "Oh my gosh, there's a capitalist threat!" Not in those people, and they're gonna suffer just like everybody else. They're just too stupid. They're too racist, I think.
I think another thing that the concept behind them wanting to take away net neutrality is just like the way Noam Chomsky described the entire U.S. political forum. He said that we're going to have very vigorous debate that it doesn't even have a point. It's just boisterous, and it goes on forever, and it's very team-oriented, but the spectrum that debate will be on is very narrow. All these other things that we should be talking about, they're not allowed. We're going to talk about just these things, and we're going to yell and scream and stomp our feet about them because we're a democracy. But all the real problems, no, you can't talk about them. And I think media has really just become the bullhorn for that system.
Yeah, you know what I don't understand in this country is the insanity behind these people. Every 4 years, every time there's an election, what do? They run out as fast as they can and choose their team and vote for Democrat or Republican. Like, these parties have failed us historically, constantly, and these idiots keep voting for them time and time and time again. I'm sick of it. We need to get a pirate party on the ballot. We need something better. We need like 10 or 15 different parties to choose from. And whichever one wins with the votes, they should, like, two parties shouldn't get almost 50 and 50% of the votes. The vote should be spread out to a whole bunch of parties. It's ridiculous. And I think that's kind of more how it used to be in this country. But eventually these two parties just sleazed their way into being the front runners and squeezed out all the other parties through legislation and all kinds of different acts.
A lot of insidious means.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't have the same, shit pile A and shit pile B in Canada, but it's not that far off. And the issue is, federally in Canada, there are 19 political parties who are legally registered to run federally. 19 parties. But if you ever see a ballot with more than 4 serious candidates, then you're in a very strange place. I mean, these national parties may run candidates in about 50% of the ridings, because that's all they can afford, and they'll finish at the bottom. But there's still a party, you know? But it's just all for show, because the laws are made by the lawmakers. And the first priority to them is protecting their position. And I've said it lots of times on my show, in Canada, MPs come, MPs go, leaders come, leaders go, but the party is always there. And that's always the number one priority for lawmakers. How does this help parties? Not just ours, all of us here in this club.
Yeah.
That's the number one priority. So, I mean, you talk about how did the U.S. get to be such a, brown-colored shit or light brown-colored shit. It's engineered, and the people have let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for putting caps on what they could spend for campaigns, and definitely, I mean, I'd even be willing to say take some tax money and spread, like, say, $5 or $10 million, and that's all, out amongst 5 or 10 different candidates, and they all have the same. You want to put more money in, that's on you. You can waste all your own money, but this is all you get, and you only get so much airtime each, and that's why your internet's free. Go ahead and promote like crazy and do whatever you got to do to win this campaign, but you can only spend so much legally. Even the playing fields, it's it's ridiculous that you have these corporations feeding these people millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars because they know they're gonna bend over backwards for them, and a lot of them are playing both sides. They're funding both teams because, it's just whoever wins, they're gonna get what they want. If you're rich enough, why not?
Your idea is a very sensible one, Tim, but that's socialism.
How is that socialism? You're voting these candidates in office. They just can't spend more than a certain amount. That's just a cap.
It just is.
That's right. See,
I got you.
That's the argument, because then you're denying people who have worked hard and gotten ahead from spending their money as they see fit. If you don't like it, you go out there and make that kind of money, and then you can match them. That's the American way.
Yeah, if anyone out there listening thinks billionaires actually work hard, go ahead and explain your reasoning so I could debunk you real quick and make you see things straight.
But I mean, that's how socialism is used, as a default dead cat issue for everything that makes sense. I really don't understand what the fear is in the United States as an institution against socialism or communism. What you should be afraid of is Nazism and Zionism, but apparently, like Chomsky said, they're not in the spectrum. We don't talk about them. Because, I mean, in Canada, we have a Communist Party, we have a Marxist-Leninist Party, we have hardcore socialists that have a regional party, we have a Libertarian Party, you name it.
Yeah, we have all those too.
But what we understand is there ain't never going to be enough of you people to cause a problem. So if that's what you want to vote for, go ahead, whatever. And nobody really, tries to label anyone as a pariah or the end of days. But that's the first default thing that happens in the U.S., I find, as far as political ideology goes. You have to be American, whatever that is, especially these days.
Yeah.
You know what? There's this thing in America where, like, I love when a new president gets elected. I entertain myself by going online, and all these Christian websites talk about how the new president is the Antichrist. Like, we've literally elected the Antichrist dozens of times. apparently.
Every time.
You know, oh, every single time we've elected the Antichrist. This is the one. This is the one right here. I know I said the last one was the one, but this is the one. You know, yeah.
Yeah, I saw something kind of funny on Twitter. I don't remember who tweeted it out, but it said capitalism in America is so horrible, people have to wait hours and days in line to get a plastic or a plastic and aluminum iPhone or something, and it showed the line around the Apple store. Like, but that's what they do in reverse for communism. They go back to maybe Russia in the 80s and still teach people, oh, people have to wait in line to get Levi's, to get bread. There's hours of lines, everything, you know. They exaggerate things that might have happened.
Well, the reality of that is, though, back then in the last throes of communism in the Soviet Union, people who had money could get whatever they wanted. And how is that any different from what's going on in the U.S. now?
Exactly.
Anybody who is connected or just, I know who to talk to, they didn't have to stand in line outside an Apple store. It got fucking delivered to them.
Yeah. Well, no, it was sarcasm. I just thought it was funny the way they did it, because it sums up how they always talk about other countries, and it was using something silly like people waiting on an iPhone. But it's true.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
They have people willing to go stand in line for a day or two to buy them a $900 phone or whatever it costs. Like, how insane is that? Get these people to go to a protest? Yeah, it doesn't happen. But they'll wait 2 days in line for a phone.
But they'll tweet about the protest.
Yeah. From the line waiting on their phone.
Yep. But I mean, this is the thing. It's been decades of conditioning to get the majority of the public to go along with this shit. And they're still not going along real smooth, but enough that this program keeps rolling forward.
Yeah. And you got a whole lot of people here that might not be right-wing bigots or anything, but they're still like, oh, well, the government knows best. The government's right. You don't want to upset things. You don't want to start trouble. Why do you go out there and protest? Things will get better. They'll never let it go that far.
These people need to read some history.
Yeah.
Yeah, they those people were saying that. They've been saying that for a few years now with the protests against police brutality and police misconduct. And they're like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not going to get any worse. And we're like, no, it's going to get worse. And now I just read an article the other day. New York City Police Department is using body bags. They're not handcuffs. They're putting people in body bags when they arrest them. Like, not everybody yet, but it's a daily occurrence where they're using these things. They're zipping people up in body bags.
For
Just
what?
let that sink in for a minute.
That doesn't make sense.
Because I guess they like it better than handcuffs. Well, I guess they handcuff people, too. They handcuff people, and then they zip them up in body bags and take them away.
Is it
You
a
can't
special?
make this
It's
up.
a special arrest kind of bag they have now, or is it an actual body bag?
Yeah, the police call it a burrito. And
Oh, are these
I know.
the things they use in the prison
I know.
to wrap people in?
Maybe. I don't know exactly what that is you're referring to. They have a lot of different restraint methods in prisons, but these are like, just picture a body bag. That's what they use. And
Okay.
It zips over the face and head and everything?
I'm not sure if it zips over their face and their head. I was looking at the article and I couldn't tell that much for sure. But let's just say it doesn't zip over their face and their head. right?
No, I'm just like,
Let's
what's the reason for it? I mean, they have these things they put over people's heads. That's what I thought you were talking about at first. If they're trying to bite or spit or supposedly do something like that, but I
yeah,
never.
yeah. No,
Wow,
there really isn't a reason. They're taking people that they've always used handcuffs on before, and now they're using handcuffs and a body bag. You know,
that's insane.
but no, it's not going to get worse. It's not going to get worse. We don't need to go out and protest against law enforcement and the rising police state. It's not going to get worse. Don't you know? How dare you block traffic? Well, I really hope that and this is like a horrible thing to say, but I really hope the people that are dogging the protesters, I really hope they wind up in one of those burritos someday, because it's getting easier and easier to do nothing wrong, to comply, and to wind up getting brutalized and or charged by police. In fact, there was an article out, some woman, the title of the headline was civilians shouldn't have to de-escalate police officers. And it was about a woman who had to stay calm and talk down an officer who shoved a gun in her face when she wasn't doing anything. She was staying calm, and he shoved a gun in her face, and she had to talk him down. Okay, that's supposed to be the police are supposed to talk somebody down when they're dealing with they're the ones who are supposed to de-escalate. But we're now coming into an age where cops can shove a gun in your face, they can scream at you, and even though they're the ones who went to training for these situations, supposedly, you are the one who has to stay calm, or you will get shot, and then they can just say, well, I feared for my life, and that's it. It's fucked up.
Yeah, it's like, what's her name? Philando Castile's Diamond Reynolds or whatever. Yeah, she had to stay calm
Yeah.
and film this while this cop has a gun aimed at her head, screaming, "Don't move! Don't move! Don't move! Don't move!" with a gun, like, basically aimed at her head. The other cop snatched her daughter out the back after they just murdered her boyfriend for no reason. Yeah, and if she would have moved too fast or done anything, he would have, I'm sure, plugged her too, and it would have been over for two people. They're insane.
Absolutely.
They,
Absolutely. I mean, that's ridiculous that a woman is expected to stay calm when her boyfriend was just shot and her kid's being dragged out of the car by the police, and
and
she better
allowed to
stay
bleed
calm.
out. No one's getting
Yeah,
him
and
any
allowed to
medical
bleed
help.
out. Yeah.
He's just dying there in
Yeah.
front of her, and she's filming it.
But you better stay calm while the police officer's flipping out, or you're going to get shot, and that's completely okay. I mean, the level of insanity going on right now when it comes to what people will let law enforcement do is just nuts. I mean, and as a martial artist, I come into contact with police officers who I'm pretty sure won't do that sort of thing. But there's plenty of cops out there who will, and it's completely okay for them to do so. And apparently it's completely okay with the American people that it's like that. Like, what, dude? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, we were just talking about before the show, and I was saying people fear ISIS terror attacks. They fear the alt-right terror attacks, but nobody seems to fear the cops, who are the number one terrorists.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were running off statistics, Tim, and there was, casualties by, jihadists and ISIS, and there was casualties by white supremacist, right-wing Christian terrorists, and poignantly enough, there was slightly more people killed by right-wing terrorist organizations, and there were a lot more attacks, because one of those attacks that accounted for like half the deaths was the attack on Pulse nightclub. But police outnumber it like almost 10 times. No, more than 10 times.
I could run through them real quick if you want.
Yes, please do.
These are 2016 numbers. Islamist extremists in 2016 were responsible for killing 90 people in total, and the Pulse Force Club was 49 of them. The people were killed at the Pulse, and those 90 people were killed in I'm sorry. Those 90 people were killed. The Pulse nightclub was 49 of those 90, and in total there were 63 attacks in the United States by Islamist extremists. Now the alt-right comes in just under them, with 79 people killed in 2016, and that's out of 115 attacks, so almost double the attacks. But they didn't have any big Pulse nightclub things, so if it wasn't for the Pulse nightclub, they would have almost doubled the Islamist extremist terrorism. And also with the alt-right is that many people aren't called terrorists that are white, so there's probably more than the 115 attacks that just weren't reported as terrorism. Now here we go.
Right, a lot of right-wing terrorists there.
Now remember, that's 90 by the Islamist extremists, 79 by the Christian or alt-right extremists. 2016, the police killed 963 people, a quarter of which were deemed mentally ill. And this year, 2017, they killed 475 people so far. So they've almost went 5 times the Islamist extremists and the alt-right.
And a disturbing number of those people were unarmed. So
I also have
go ahead.
Some real quick statistics for the people who are claiming there's a war on cops. So like I said, in 2016, the cops killed 963 people. 21 cops were killed violently that whole year out of 48 total deaths, most of which were traffic. And in 2017, already the cops had killed 475 people, and 22 cops were killed, and out of 63 total deaths, most of which were traffic. And one more thing, the war on religion. You always hear people saying that. So actually, in 2016, there were 260 attacks on Muslims in the United States. The people that most of these jackasses are running around calling terrorists are being terrorized themselves.
Yeah, so, and another thing, like some of those like these Christian attacks on these right-wing Christian attacks on Muslims, sometimes they're not even attacking Muslims. They've killed sheiks, or not sheiks, Sikhs. God, I'm so worked up from just talking about.
Quite a few times they've killed Sikhs because they're too stupid to realize. I mean, you shouldn't be killing anybody for no reason, if it's not in self-defense for your life. But they don't even.
But those people are from India.
Yeah, and
those people are from India, and India is a U.S. ally. Kill them anyway because they look like they might be Muslim. It's like, what the?
So is Turkey, though. So I don't think the U.S. ally has anything to do with it, because Turkey and Saudi Arabia are both U.S. allies too.
This is true, but Turkey and Saudi Arabia, they're okay because Trump likes them. So moving on.
Dictators love dictators, unless that dictator is Kim Jong-un, who is a threat to you because he thinks he's God too. I think that's the difference.
But bringing it back to the discussion about police and the number of people police kill. Now realize the what I'm about to say is a few years old now. But there was a U.S. Department of Safety report. So this was the U.S. Department of Safety on the IFoughtTheLaw.info website and all the social media accounts. You see the number 55 in a circle. It's there for a reason, because this report stated that you are 55 times more likely to be killed by a law enforcement officer than by a terrorist. And just let that sink in for a minute, right? That's what's going on as far as terrorism in the United States. I don't demonize Islam as a whole. I don't demonize Christianity as a whole. I won't demonize law enforcement as a whole. But the fact of the matter is, that's going on. 55 times more likely to be killed by a cop than a terrorist. Okay, there's a big problem here. And I just don't understand why America's okay with this.
I mean, it's so much money spent on.
Wrap my head around it.
It's so much money spent on quote unquote anti-terrorism. And they could solve these murderous cops terrorizing the citizens on a daily basis so simply by just some legislation. and some rules, and holding cops to at least a higher standard as an average citizen, where you commit a crime, you're going to have to pay the punishment for it. Not we're going to let you off because you have a badge and a gun and you protect Nazis.
Well, that's the whole thing I don't understand is like, why the hell so these protests are happening, right? And police don't like these protests. The statistics are there to back up the things the protesters are angry about. So, like, all law enforcement has to do is recognize this is a problem and fix it, and the protests will stop. Because contrary to what they and, their right-wing supporters would love to believe, the protesters are not out there because they're getting paid by George Soros. They're not out there because they want to be there. Protesters and, activists like myself, we would much rather be doing something else. I thought the law.info is not consistent because I have other stuff going on in my life that I'm, and I'd rather not have to do I fought the law.info at all. But the protesters are out there and the activists are concerned about this thing and the advocates are concerned about this thing because it exists. It's a problem. And if you just fix the problem, all this will stop, and they don't want to. They just keep doubling down and doubling down and doubling down, and I don't get it. Everybody loves a hero. Like, if cops get their shit straight, people will stop protesting. There won't be very many people talking about things like police brutality and everything else that goes hand in hand with it. That's all that has to happen. Acknowledge the problem and fix it, and they just won't. They refuse to.
I seen a video the other day on YouTube where they were filming these cops, and the cops didn't want to be filmed. I don't know what they were doing. They were searching a car illegally, I believe. And so the cops harassing this guy that was filming, and he's talking about, I can't, he's like, how come you're not messing with these people for doing the same thing? Because I can only do one thing at a time. But now mind you, he has people sitting in a car he had stopped. And he doesn't even care about them, so he's harassing the people with the camera over all that. And then the guy that's filming says, I have a First Amendment right to do this. And then the cop gets this little smug look, and it's because I fought for your First Amendment rights. So the guy on the camera is like, oh yeah, where did you fight for my First Amendment rights? And the cop's like, I don't have to answer, but I was in the military. And he goes, what military operation were you involved in that fought for my First Amendment rights? He goes, were you around in the 1700s? And the cop got all mad, and then he found a reason to give him a ticket. But yeah, I mean, these cops really think they're so much better than us and so special. And you got these whack jobs like the NRA just put out a video, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, saying we support our cops and, back the blue or whatever they say. And it's this coming right after the Philandro Castile thing that they wouldn't even talk about. They said wait until more details. That when it happened, wait until more details come, because they wanted to back the cop. They wanted something to be wrong with Philando Castile, but he was spotless. So no comment. And then today we back police with some stupid video.
Right, and the level of cognitive dissonance going. I mean, we talked last week about the hypocrisy of the NRA. There's no need to go into it again, but they did this new video and they put it out, and it really does emphasize their level of hypocrisy, and who exactly they want gun rights for. Like, they only want gun rights for certain people who just happen to be a certain skin color, usually,
Let me just remind everybody.
If you want to play Where's Waldo, you can find a couple black people and a couple of Hispanic people in there. But let's face it, the NRA is about, gun rights for white people. It's like an unsaid thing.
Yeah, the white supremacists always want somebody who's black or Latino or whatever. They're hating that day to be there to bash people so they can say, look, it's not just us. He's saying it too. They look for the truly stupid, and that's been a tactic they've used for a long time. But real quick, just to remind people, within the next month, I'm going to go go to the next NRA meeting they're having locally where I'm at. I found out where it's going to be. and I'm going to go with a camera and a mic and try to ask them some questions. So any questions you guys have about why they're so screwed up or why they're so racist or whatever you want me to ask them, go ahead and just tweet me with those questions or hit us here in the comments, and I'll add them to my list of things to ask the NRA members. I don't really know what to expect, but I was told they don't allow guns at their own meetings, so that makes me feel like until we get in the parking lot, I'll be safe. So yeah, just if you have any comments or questions that you want when this meeting takes place, I'm going to try to do my best to force some people to talk on the record, about what the average NRA member believes. Let's see if we're right or wrong. I'm pretty sure we're right.
Well, that depends. I mean, there is some decent analytical research on what the membership of the NRA really is. I mean, if you look at the results of their own, their own yearly poll that they send to their members, for a very long time now, for well over a decade, the majority, and it's gone as high as into the low 70s percentile, are in favor of mandatory background checks. That's their own membership. But the leadership, nope, it's not happening.
So you think it's mainly the people in charge that screw up the whole organization?
Oh, yeah, it's the D.C. lobby. It's Wayne LaPierre. It's all those idiots. They are the problem.
I'm going to agree with that. I have friends who have NRA membership cards, and they're not even half as asinine as, what the NRA itself officially says. So it's definitely a thing with the leadership. And of course, when the leadership talks that way, they are definitely going to draw people who think that way. But there's quite a bit of their membership that is just like, well, I'm not really happy with them, but I don't want my guns taken away, so I guess I'll stay with them. It'd be great if there was another good-sized gun lobby that was a little more common sense, but there's not.
I don't understand it at all. I mean, we have a Second Amendment. What do you need the NRA for? All there is a fear monger to sell guns.
But you go.
And there's definitely something to that.
But they also have a monopoly on the market, and that's a very American thing. And they pay for that privilege by greasing the government as much as they do. There ain't no free lunch. But, the thing is, one of the other things with an NRA membership, they have deals. There are a few chains of gun ranges in the U.S. And if you're an NRA member, you get 15% off, or you get this, or you get that. That keeps people paying their dues every year when they get deals monetarily to buy more guns. That's now known as a win-win in 21st century. So,
I'm glad we did this.
That's how the NRA really keeps those people belonging. They give them incentives to save them money, to basically create a bigger database for the NRA itself. And we'll drop 15 points on that for you. They're very good marketers. And you have to think, for them to be so ridiculous in their public statements and to hardly ever hear any blowback from members, then those members got to be getting some.
Yeah, so there's a question right there. How happy are you with the leadership of the NRA?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. Do you agree with the things they claim that their members all agree with, like such and such and such and such? Yeah,
would ask.
That's good.
I would ask them two questions flat out. I would say, are you in favor of mandatory background checks for handguns? And The other question would be, what do you think about repealing the law against mentally unstable people having guns?
Yeah, those are good questions.
Yeah,
those are very good questions.
Those are like, that's like post Sandy Hook. Like, what the fuck? You're going to allow crazy people to get semi-automatic weapons. Why? Just why? How many can they buy? Is it going to affect the stock? Like, why?
I've done a lot of thinking on that. Myself having a diagnosis of severe PTSD and major recurring depression, I've thought about the whole thing about mentally ill people being able to have guns because, as you know, I love guns, right? Mm-hmm. But one thing that did occur to me is what if you deny mentally ill people the right to have guns? Well, first of all, there's certain levels of functionality. Like some mentally ill people are only to a degree where they can still have guns and nobody's in danger, and then mm-hmm. there's a point where it becomes much more dangerous. But so where do you figure out where that line is? And then the second thing that occurred to me is, what if you have somebody with guns who is starting to experience problems with depression, or they're starting to experience whatever, right? How likely are they to seek help if they know that that's going to put a red mark on them and they might wind up having to give up their guns?
Well, no, I don't think that's directly equivalent to what the repeal of that law. I mean, anybody who was on a database, I believe it was state databases, mental health databases, like people who have been diagnosed with a psychotic disorder, who had done time in a state institution for likely forensic, right? Criminal.
So right now, the way the law exists, you have to be pretty severely mentally ill to be not able to have a gun legally.
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Okay, but that's been relaxed since the repeal?
That I don't know. I haven't followed that thing too closely, because when I hear mentally ill people shouldn't have guns, I'm like, well, that's not something I'm going to argue with. But, these are just thoughts that have occurred to me as I've thought about the issue of should mentally ill people be allowed to have guns? What does it mean? At what point is mental illness that severe where they shouldn't? These are just things that cross through my head. I'm not really commenting on the current law per se. Just, as people consider this issue, it's things to think about, things that popped up in my mind,
Well, that makes sense. But I mean, why I think Tim should ask questions about those two specific issues is because not necessarily what they really mean, it's the perception of them. Because the NRA is nothing, their whole organization is a perception, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
It is, and there's something very shady there. Like, I don't think, at the end of the day, the NRA is really there to protect gun rights. Like, I think, again, me and my tinfoil hat, but I think something else is going on with the NRA, and I can't put my finger on it, but I smell something there. I smell deception there.
Power and profit.
Definitely that. But, what if you got all these people signing up for NRA memberships? Now all of a sudden you can hand that over to Trump, the membership list, and you automatically know who has guns and who doesn't. The government has that knowledge now.
They already have that. You have to register guns.
Oh yeah, they've got the registered guns, but you can kind of like you can look at, okay, these are the people who are more passionate about their guns. These are the people who might be more of a threat to the government with their guns. It's just an idea. It's not so much a conspiracy theory. It's more of a conspiracy what if that I have.
Yeah, you might not have any idea how many illegal guns that aren't registered are out there that people um, won't report.
Oh,
There's
I'm aware that there are a lot of those, which by the way, I'm kind of helps me sleep better at night because I really believe the government's going to try some kind of power play soon, and like the more guns that are in the hands of people who aren't the government, the better I feel about that. I mean, I'm sorry, man. Crime is something that worries me. Violent criminals do worry me, but what I'm way more scared of the government. I think there's way more violent criminals in there, and they have impunity to do what they want. So that scares me more than violent criminals, at least in this day and age, at this
yeah,
point in our history.
violent criminals are what keeps guns selling. The threat, fear your neighbor, this person, fear that person, fear anyone who's different than you. But I think the fact is that the people that are most a threat with the guns are those gun-loving whack job NRA types who usually are the ones who end up shooting things up a lot, um, as well as the police and military. Um, but I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. These people love guns. I don't understand that. Like, you're loving a gun. It's a weapon. It should be something you'd say, oh, I have a gun to protect myself. Not I'm going to polish it and take pictures with it and dance around with it, aim it at the mirror and talk to myself. It's just crazy. It's
Yeah. There's a strong there's right now there's a really strong push to limit guns in a big way, and I we hear this whole thing of, well, it's this communist plot to take away our guns and my America and my freedom and this kind of thing, and my answer to those people is no. Actually, the reason that's happening is because of you. Okay, there's a big substantial portion of gun owners who make way too big of a deal out of their guns, and you can go on their social media pages and you can see their memes, and it's like really threatening shit. It's like Muslim invasion, not in my yard, and picture of their AR-15 or whatever, and this kind of stuff. And they're just like, you see these people and they just look so keyed up, and they're like so into this idea that there is a threat that I have to arm myself and defend myself from, and you get the idea that pretty much anybody could be considered a threat to them. And like I think you were going to talk about the stand your ground laws here. Here's why stand your ground is having such a difficult time. Everybody has a right to defend themselves from aggression. That is a God-given right, and I strongly believe in that, which is why I would be for stand your ground laws, but like I said, the gun people are kind of doing this to themselves. Like, people are acting like psychos with their guns. It's a gun. It's a tool for self-defense. At the end of the day, it's a tool. It's not your dick. Put it away. Don't wave it in my face. Don't go waving your dick in people's faces. Don't do it with your gun either, because your gun is not your dick. And it's like, these people really think it is. They really think it is. And it's like, of course that's going to freak people out, and people are going to push back against guns. That kind of shit is scaring people. And I'm sorry, gun owners, but you're doing it to yourself, or at least a good portion of you are, because I love guns, but I have a lot of friends who don't love guns because my friendship pool is very diverse. I know what the anti-gun people are thinking, and that's what they're thinking. They're scared shitless of the shit these people are like saying and doing publicly, and the stance they're taking with their guns.
Yeah, I mean, like I see the pictures from other states where these people are in restaurants and stores looking like they're in Iraq. I mean, they got assault rifles on their back, one slung around their shoulder. Who needs 2 assault rifles? Shotgun strapped to them, pistols on both sides, knives, and then they're in camouflage and bulletproof. Like, what are you that scared of? You at a grocery store, dude. You at a restaurant. It's insane.
Well, exactly. And so that's why I, as a gun lover, can't get behind stand your ground as much as I like the idea, because what you're dealing with is a person's inalienable right to protect themselves from aggression versus a person's inalienable right to be safe from crazy people, crazy aggressive people with guns, so it's like, I don't know where I land on that one, because I know what I like stand your ground, but I understand why it might be a bad idea in this particular country with the particular, kind of toxic, like, Grr, America thing that gun owners have going on.
I think it's because they're confusing 2 things. They are using the, as you said, unalienable right to protect yourself against physical threat. That's legitimate. That's universal. But what a lot of these newer generation gun owners are doing is they're assuming the same right to defend their mental person, to defend themselves socially in society. It's got nothing to do with anybody actually trying to cause them harm. It's the harm that people cause them in their own head. People are using this, like you said, it's not a dick. But, you're spot on, Steve. This is the thing, it's just like up here in oil country. The bigger truck you have, the smaller dick you have. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, I think that's what's going on. These people have taken the Second Amendment to mean you can't hurt my feels.
Pretty much. It's very snowflakey.
I get nervous when the cops walk in the store with their guns on their sides when I'm somewhere, because I don't trust them. But I think I would be terrified going into a restaurant or a grocery store and seeing some dude looks like he's in Iraq or something, in some war zone with all these guns strapped to him and vests. And I would be very skeptical of that person. I don't know how they. And I mean, if it was my store, I'd ask them to leave. Like, go put all that in your car and come back in looking like a normal person. You're scaring the other customers. It just makes no sense.
That depends what state you're in. You can't tell them that in every state anymore.
You can ask them nicely, like, come on, man. Do you really need can't you just come in with a pistol in your pocket that no one has to be in fear?
Well, that's what you bring up there is a really good point. Like, I think open carry is just a pretty stupid idea. Like, open carrying, it's I think it's irresponsible. You're right, because like people are like, okay, you've got a gun and you've got it on display. What the hell do you have a gun on display for? Like, a lot of people, if they see a cop or a security guard with a gun on their belt, they're like, okay, I understand why you have a gun, because that's part of this job which we don't agree with, but people look at it and they're like, that's part of your job. But like, when people walk into a store and there's a guy with an AR-15 slung over his back and a sidearm and whatnot, like, first of all, what it does is like it does automatically. I've heard several gun instructors say this: as soon as a gun is displayed, everything changes, everything gets more tense.
I agree.
When there is a gun visible, things get more intense. Any gun safety instructor will tell you that. So there's the first reason it's a dumb idea. Second reason it's a dumb idea: if I were a mass shooter and I showed up somewhere, who would be the first person I would target? The person that I saw was armed. And I think they have this idea that if you have a show of force, that's going to discourage a disturbed person who showed up to shoot a place up. And now, I can tell you that that's not true because I'm going to talk about a thing about myself that I'm not very proud of, a period in my life. After we all know that, like, I fought the law.info came out of an incident I had with unprovoked police brutality, you know, where I was brutalized really bad. And there was a period after that that was very toxic for me, where I was very off the rails, and I celebrated when I heard about a cop dying, and I wanted cops dead, and I was completely unhinged, and I had thoughts that I am just appalled by now. I'm in a much better place. You know, I worked through a lot of that shit, but at that time, I can tell you, if I had chosen to act on my thoughts, an armed person wouldn't have discouraged me. They just would have marked themselves as the person I need to take out so I can carry out my plan. You know, I've been in that mindset at one point in my life, which, again, I'm embarrassed about, and it's hard for me to talk about on here, but I feel like I have to so that people understand this whole thing of, like, displaying weapons is not going to stop an unhinged mass shooter, you know, or somebody who shows up to inflict mass violence. It will not.
Yeah, no need.
You know, because I've been in that mindset.
No need to feel bad about that. I feel like that pretty much every day when a cop gets killed or something. It's like the community's that much safer for that day until they get another one to replace it. But the other thing that you were saying made a lot of sense too. Like, the person, if you're a mass shooter, you're going in, the first person you're going to shoot is a person with all the weapons, and then what does that do? It might give you more ammo and weapons to shoot more people with.
And it's also the biggest deterrent statement you could make. I mean, it's just like if you go to armed rob a bank, if you walk in the door and shoot the security guard with the gun, then, you know, you're pretty much in control.
Yeah. So I guess they are helping by taking the heat off the unarmed people first, so we might have a chance to get out while they get shot and all their weapons taken.
Well, you know, I mean,
well, Top
like,
is here. Hi, Top.
Hey, good evening, gents. How's it going?
How you doing,
all
Top?
right.
Top, good to hear from you, man.
Good to hear from you, Steve. Good to see you again.
You guys don't have gun problems
Absolutely.
out there as much as we do here, if at all. I mean, I know there's guns, but they're not legal and they're not abundant.
No. We are blessed with having a nation that doesn't believe that everybody has the right to bear arms, because there's certain people or certain citizens that should definitely not be fucking armed.
Can I ask you a question? Because this is something that every American is taught. Without arms, we can't protect ourselves against our government. What happens if your government comes after you, Tops? Do you guys have a plan for that?
Well, it hasn't actually happened for like 300 years.
Yeah, but I guess you guys are good at busting bottles and fighting with them and stuff now, since there's no guns, right?
Well, here's the thing. A political narrative in any country is only voted in. A government is only as good as the next election cycle. When your political class has lost the trust of its people, is voted out of government. You don't need to raise arms to remove them. You do it at the ballot box. We firmly believe in democracy, and it's worked okay so far.
There you have it.
We don't get what we vote for necessarily, but look at the political swings in recent history. It's like you guys have ended up with Trump. That was a political decision, not necessarily by the majority of your nation, but by the way your system worked. Was that decided by guns? No. It may take guns to remove the fucker, but that's another question.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just something they need. They always say, without the guns, the government will take us over and everyone will kill everybody. But that's not the case over there. That wasn't the point I was making.
But you guys are killing each other anyway with guns, and it doesn't take your government's doing it, but you guys are doing it to each other
Every single day, and then the government adds to that.
And you're making very valid points, Top. I mean, I'm not going to take away from what you're saying, because you're right. UK has way less of a gun violence problem than America, and the gun laws are way more restrictive there. So you got as a guy who loves guns, you got me on that one. But I think guns are such an integral part of American culture because of the way this country started, like throwing off British rule by forming militias and having a revolutionary war. And I think that thing just kind of sticks with people as it's embedded in our psyche. So it's I think guns are kind of always going to be a fact of life here in America. I don't really think there's a way to round up guns and take them from everybody. It's kind of like the genie was let out of the bottle and it's never going back in. Guns are just a fact of life here.
Yeah, you're too far gone for that type of amnesty to occur. And that, as you say, it's a national mindset. But what you can do, and this is one thing that I will give President Obama credit for, he tried to not restrict or stop people having guns, but restrict the type of people that can have guns, like those that are kind of unstable mentally, or those that are known to the health profession or violence, known violence historically, especially against women and minorities, etc. So there was an attempt that was shot down, and I firmly believe it was the NRA, if I recall correctly. They don't want any restrictions. They think everybody should own guns. Now, that's just a policy of suicide. If you're just going to allow everyone to have guns, then you are going to have guns to defend yourself. But if you restrict people that shouldn't have guns, there's a lot less risk and a lot less reason for you to defend yourself. And I'm not saying again from the state. I'm talking about individuals with psychopathic and psychological disparities of those that are not you would class as normal.
Yeah, I think
the NRA too.
I think the NRA wants everyone to be able to buy guns, but only white people to be able to carry them around without a problem.
A recent court case in the US has shown that it's. If you're a black man with a gun, whether it's legal or not, you're still the state still is lawful for that police officer to shoot a black man, even though he owns that gun lawfully.
Yep, and the NRA never cares about that. I mean, this is like I say every couple of shows when we end up having to talk about them. The only time they went totally against gun ownership was in California when the Black Panthers went up on the Capitol building with guns in their hand to be heard with what they had to say, and the NRA all of a sudden didn't want people to be able to have open carry in California.
I was just going to mention that because, on the one hand, you've got the old, almost like newsreel footage of places like Birmingham and Atlanta and Little Rock and Memphis with Klansmen marching with weapons in a parade. Second Amendment, no problem. And then you have the Panthers in 1970 doing the exact same thing and being far less offensive about it. But no, we can't have that. No, stop, full stop. Black men with guns, time out.
And one group is called a terrorist and the other group is not.
Yep.
That's insane. The one who terrorized people, lynched people, killed people historically through history is not called a terrorist organization. The one that fed children, protected people's rights, and protected their community from being destroyed, those are the terrorists. Makes no sense.
Agreed.
That kind of, in a way, it all ties into the next thing we were going to talk about, which is kind of funny. Sad yet funny is that NPR, when they were tweeting the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, This shows how stupid a lot of these pro-gun owners really are.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. This is the thing I've been wanting to talk about too. Like, this is the thing I've been waiting for.
Just so you know, guys, as well, we know about it here in the UK. We know all about it.
Yeah, did you hear about that, Glenn?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, all these Trump supporters and right-wing people started bashing him because they were talking about they were tweeting the Declaration of Independence in 140 character segments, and people were seeing these things talking about the king and the tyrants and this and that, and automatically assumed they were talking about Trump. So I started putting out all the, this is not the right place. This is trash. Stop what you're doing. How dare you? You know what I mean?
Oh my God, yes, it was. They went full retard, and it needs to be pointed out that this is something NPR does every year. They just started tweeting it on Twitter in 140 characters at a time, because of course Twitter has become so relevant now. But they for years and years and years, this is a custom on 4th of July. They read the Declaration of Independence on their show. So let's be clear. They were doing nothing unusual here. They were doing the thing they do every year. This happens every year, But like, yeah, I mean, oh my God, the Trump nation just like flipped out. They were like, you can't say that about our president, and this kind of stuff. That's treason. They were like, treason. I have two thoughts on this thing. The first thought is that, you always have this thing where like somebody on the right will show you a stereotypical social justice warrior throwing a childish temper tantrum and being like, look, they're triggered and da 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 da, and look how stupid the libtards are. And then on the left, you'll have somebody showing like somebody at a Trump rally saying something really racist and be like, see how racist conservatards are. And you kind of got to dismiss that because you're always getting like the vocal minority in those situations. But this is a different thing. And the reason why is because a whole lot of people from the Trump nation flipped out, got triggered, flipped out, and reacted to this and got offended by this. And that kind of points to a certain mindset. And that's my second observation is the mindset this betrays. All I can say is, if you think the Declaration of Independence is against the guy you voted for, it probably is.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people, after they were told, went and felt stupid, like this. But all these people, if you go, I went through a lot of their timelines. Some of them actually deleted their accounts, but I went through a lot of these because that's how stupid they were. But I went through some of these people's timelines, just straight racism, straight pro-police, pro-Trump, hate BLM. I mean, it's just same old stuff, same memes, extremely racist. But
you just need to highlight to these guys that there was no such thing as the LAPD when this document was written.
Yeah, well, most of them took their tweets down after they realized how stupid it was. But then you got people like this guy, Darren Mills. He's a third-rate wannabe Tucker Carlson. He even has the bow tie. He's a libertarian Christian ex-writer for Big News, blackballed media journalist, links to the left, feminist job lynch mob. He refused. He called the Declaration of Independence trash, and he refused to take his words back. He's that awesome. He said, "I stand by my words." And then he's telling people to stop drinking and doing this, and like he's bashing the people that are telling him how stupid he is.
Is he a Mormon?
It says libertarian. I have his little account popped up right here because he was so funny. I had to look at it. He's extremely racist. Libertarian Christian, ex-writer for Big News. Doesn't say, is Big News a company or is that just... But he was blackballed thanks to left-wing feminist job lynch mob. So he probably said something extremely sexist or violent toward women and lost his job for it. That's what I'm assuming.
I would put the money on he's a Mormon.
No, Mormon would have said Mormon. I don't think they put Christian.
Sure they do.
Oh, do they? Okay, then maybe he is. But yeah, he wears the bow tie like Tucker Carlson. He looks like a jerk. He's an idiot. Yeah, especially if you stand by those words, trash.
What an idiot.
Yeah, these people are just so dumb. They don't even read what they tweet. They just see one of these chimpanzees jumps on it, and they all start going like a frenzy, like sharks that got
Okay.
blood.
Now this really demonstrates something, because if you had this technology of today and you moved it back to the 1950s, on July 4th there would be tens of thousands of teenagers tweeting the exact fucking same thing out, because they all took it in school and it was a big deal and they knew it. When they saw a line of it, they knew what document it was from. Now
Yeah,
go ahead 50 years and you have adults with their own grown children that have no idea what document that's from.
Well, yeah, I
Right.
think what I
It's
heard
very
was
telling.
I heard they used to have classes like civics where in high schools and regular schools where people would learn how the government runs and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
never actually had a class dedicated to that. It was, and I don't know if they do now at all. I don't think they want you to know how the government runs.
Exactly.
But yeah, I never had. I mean, we'd have classes like history where they tell you certain things about it. We never had a class dedicated to that. And I'm sure that's by design as well. They don't want you to know what's going on. The dumber you are, the more likely you're going to vote for one of these two parties, and which all work for the same corporate bosses.
Well, for me, when I went to public school here, that would have been probably the period between the end of the 60s to about 74. I can remember we took a course, because of the system we have, we took a course right from the Magna Carta through the British Parliament early, then how we got the same Parliament, how Australia's got it, India's got it, yeah. And you got tested on it. This is how our system works. You should know this, And then the next year it would be just about how you elected a mayor and councillors. It's like, back then it was like, you're going to be a voter. You should know how this shit works.
Yeah.
But that's all gone now. All of it.
In Canada as well?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's gone. We can offer a 3-credit course on iPad fucking painting or something, So that'll be popular, and we can charge fees for it. So that's the way we go.
Yeah, so I guess the way to look at it is most Americans are pretty ignorant, but right-wing Americans or alt-right Americans are even more pretty ignorant.
Yep, apparently, it's just like when I saw that, I was just like, oh, wow, like I knew it, but here's the proof, of where that segment of the population, where their mindset is really at. They just kind of showed their hand. They kind of showed their true colors, and I mean, it's just out there for the world to see. And like I said, this is not one of those cases of where you take the vocal minority and put them up and say, here, this is what all these people are about. This is what this movement is about. This is a case where you had a lot of people reacting like this. So now you can look and say, okay, this is what this movement is about.
But I love that some of them were so embarrassed by their stupidity they deleted their accounts. The less alt-right accounts we have, the better. I'm sure they reopened them under another name, but it's fun.
They just popped up under a new ID. You'll see a new account pop up with a chimpanzee as its profile and the name Ook Ook or some shit like that. They'll be back.
Ook Ook, what is that?
No, I literally got blocked by somebody with that, by the way. That was his Twitter name, Ook, and he had like a chimpanzee for his profile, you know. And these people swear they're not racist, but, you know, they've got that kind of shit going on. It's just like, I don't know. I'll never forget that profile because I just looked at it and I was like, oh my God, this is just so ridiculous. It took me about 5 minutes to trigger him and get blocked.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you know, those people will be back.
Well, since we're on the idiots, we got about 10, 11 minutes left. What you guys, before the show, we were talking about that CNN meme, that whole situation there, and I was saying how I don't see it as a big deal. It doesn't seem like it's encouraging violence, and I mean, I guess it's extremely unpresidential to tweet it out, and it looks really stupid for a president to be doing that. But other than that, I mean, I don't see it as a threat. I think they're making a bigger deal out of it than it actually is. But then you guys,
I agree. I totally agree. Now, I would have posted something like that.
Absolutely. I hate Trump, and I got such a laugh out of that meme anyway. You know, I thought it was absolutely hilarious, you know, and I mean,
you're right. It was just blown out of all proportion on that aspect, and I will give Trump that. But you're absolutely right when you're saying it's the least presidential thing that you could actually do. It's like you're the president. You're supposed to be held to a higher standing. You're supposed to be leading by example. So is he effectively just saying that, okay, now the world is run by memes? It works for me, but it's not going to work for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, these people are calling it a threat and it's violent, and I just didn't see it. I don't understand that.
I think that's a little bit beyond parody, to be honest. I do have some out. Are you guys there?
You're breaking up, Talk.
I must be my signal.
There you are. We got you. Go ahead.
This is a commentary. You know, Trump's in Hamburg at the moment meeting Putin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an ongoing G20 meeting of global leaders. But there was a statement released today at 3:37 UK time. And it's this: the leaders of the US, Japan, and South Korea have condemned North Korea's ballistic missile test this week as a major escalation and promised to apply maximum pressure to counter Pyongyang's nuclear threat. The launch, a major escalation that directly violates multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions and that clearly demonstrates the growing threat North Korea poses. The three countries mentioned jointly stated in a statement. President Trump reaffirmed the ironclad commitment of the United States to defend the Republic of Korea and Japan using the full range of its conventional and nuclear capabilities. He's just threatened nuclear weapons against North Korea. Now, we know that North Korea keeps saber-rattling the US, but Donald Trump has blatantly come out today and stated that he will use nuclear weapons at G20 against North Korea.
That's escalation, and I'm never for escalation. You know, I'm like, why don't we try to talk the situation down a little bit, you know? But he's the kind of guy who just likes to escalate and take everything into full-blown conflict. It's like, that's what we're going to get, and what are you going to do, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to post this screenshot into the chat now, just so you guys can see what I just read out. It's in The Guardian. It's been a live commentary throughout the day, all of the G20 news, etc. That's come out. But yeah, that's President Trump in his own words.
Well, I think as far as the statement of conventional and nuclear capabilities, I mean, that's a slogan. I mean, he can't exactly leave one out when he's talking about full military power, because then there would be people that saying, oh, he didn't mention nuclear, that means he's going nuclear. That would just start a whole nother shitstorm. Yeah. So I think he just said it because that's procedure. That's all.
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
When nukes are involved, I think everybody should be choosing their words very carefully, and everybody should be trying to not be the guy who takes it to the next level. I mean, and that's just like my idea on how to handle it, and I may be wrong, but where I stand, nukes are nukes. They're not toys, I mean, millions of people will die if one gets launched, and possibly billions of people will die if one gets launched. And that's to me, we should be trying to back away from that as much as possible. You get a point where you have to show backbone, or otherwise the other side can just keep escalating. But try to meet them there. Don't escalate. Escalation is not. It's not a tool that I carry in my conflict resolution toolbox.
Well, it's actually reported as well. If we go down to the cyber offense that you guys have capabilities within, is reported that a number of ballistic missile tests have been thwarted by cyber offense. Is widely known. Has that capability now ceased, possibly with the release of the CIA cash from shadow brokers, etc.? Have these exploits now been shut down? Do the Americans not have the capability to thwart or push back successful testing now by North Korea? Because they're ramping it up.
Well, we talked about this early on, and what I said was I think a big difference is this is a new missile. This is a 2-stage missile now that they're making the ICBM claim with. So maybe that program had much better OPSEC. Who knows?
Completely air-gapped. You don't know. In another facility, another team developing it. I did catch the part of the conversation earlier as well, and I don't know if you guys picked up on my point in the chat. A lot of the commentary from this side of the pond is okay, they can get this missile up now, possibly with fissile material or nuclear material as a warhead, but have they got the capabilities to deploy it within re-entry to the atmosphere? That's the commentary that's coming out at the moment. There's no evidence at the moment that it can be re-entered into the atmosphere to detonate, even if it does, if the weapon does hit the target. Nuclear proliferation and nuclear bomb technology is very notoriously difficult to replicate. Now, we know Pakistan through AQ Khan has helped North Korea get its nuclear proliferation program off the ground, as it did with Iran, and there were conversations with AQ Khan in Iraq. Have you guys heard of AQ Khan from Pakistan?
Yes. Oh, yes. He's also rather involved with South Africa as well.
Yes, indeed, he is. Any rogue state that hasn't developed their nuclear capability legitimately or in the open, no doubt has had support or information from the AQ Khan nuclear weapon black market, shall we say.
Yeah.
But then, on the one hand, are all nations equal or not? I mean, Israel is allowed to lie about their nuclear stockpile, but yet countries that try to even figure it out under a microscope are immediately vilified because they're not on our team.
Well, we've got massive hypocrisy here in the UK. We can't afford to run our government effectively with social care for the elderly, taking school kids' meals away from children at lunchtime, and yet we're signed up to the non-nuclear proliferation treaty, but we're renewing Trident to reportedly over £100 billion. So there's hypocrisy all over where nuclear weapons are concerned.
Indeed. But
I think I said this. I think I said this in a previous show. Is nobody looks good in the nuclear weapons game.
In reality, no. But in public relations, oh yeah, they look spectacular. Well, what do we say, host? Are we done?
Yeah, does anybody else have anything they want to add before we go?
I can't think of anything. I've done a lot of talking today, so
Top, you
I
might
think
wanna,
my voice is getting hoarse.
Top, you might want to. We all went over what was coming up on our shows. You might want to talk about Top Gear Live if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for that, mate. There's no show this weekend. There's a very valid reason for this in that I've booked a week's vacation, and instead of going on a holiday, I intend to go to an anti-fracking camp in the north of England, where it's started to get pretty violent with private security. We all know what happened at Dakota Access Pipeline. There's a similar situation happening in the UK, although it's not in sub-zero temperatures. But there were reports today of security. Well, there's been reports all week of security getting violent with protesters using strong arm tactics, including pressure point, stress, typical security and military tactics on innocent protesters, water protectors. So I've decided to head up there and see what's going on. So I'm hoping to do some live stream from there. But yeah, sadly, there's no Top Gear Live show this Sunday. There will be a Top Gear Live the following Sunday. And did you guys listen to the Captain Crunch show last weekend?
Yep.
Well,
No, I didn't get
just
to
to give you no worries. Just to give you a heads up, we're working on a dual interview with Barrett Brown and Captain Crunch coming up. It's not necessarily going to be on Top Gear Live. It's probably going to be going out on YouTube or other platforms. It'll be on multiple platforms, but
That is very cool.
Yeah, so Captain Crunch and Barrett Brown interview. I'm going to be hosting or chairing the conversation, and that's coming in the next couple of weeks.
Cool. All right, so I guess that's it. Unless anyone else has anything else, thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks to all the co-hosts here. As always, another great show.
And thanks to you, Tim, for making this happen.
We all make it happen together. Cool. All right, we're
out.
Take care, guys.